So what we got is, we got an overview tour. It's a rolling tour. Some of these things that we're actually gonna be talking about are covered under state cost share. There's a windbreak that we put in for kind of like a shelter belt kind of a thing. So instead of having trees as a shelter belt, we've got a fabricated structure. Put it up on a mound, set it up on there in an east-west direction so the cattle can be on the north or the south depending on what the prevailing wind is. We're the University of Kentucky, but we're in the same boat as you all, okay? Because what happened to us is basically we got a grant to come out here and do these practices so we could have this beef bash and show you all what we've done. We can have this for 20 years. We can show people what's going on and some best management practices. But in order to get that money, we had a granting officer that came out and wanted to see how we were doing, okay? So the granting officer comes out, we're driving down through this way, and as we get down to right about here, okay, about 70 cows pop up out of this little area right here, okay? So they were getting in there underneath those trees, and they were hanging out with that water source down below there and in those trees. How long were they hanging out in there? From 10 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon on any hot day like this, okay? And then what you got was, you had situations that look like this. What do you suppose that granting officer from the water quality, what do you suppose they thought about that when they saw, you know, these cows standing in these creeks like this? Probably didn't go over too well, did it? Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. But you know, we got these signs to talk about, you know, we fenced off this area, and there's a sign right there that says, as the percentage of roots in the stream bank increases, erosion decreases. It says a 2-inch root mat resists soil erosion up to 20,000 times more than bare soil. We got a sign over there that was over on the winter feeding structure talking about an average animal, an average cow produces 64 pounds of manure a day. In a month, that's a ton, okay? Imagine these cows sitting down in this riparian area from 10 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon. One cow, 1,000 pound animal standing in that water can pollute 24,000 gallons a day, okay? Where's your water supply come from? But there's also production losses too, because depending on where that water quality comes from and that water quality, if she's drinking something that she's standing in, urinating and defecating in, how does that affect her health and her production? It's not good. So giving them clean water can actually increase gains by 20% or more. First winter feeding structure is going to be on your left, gravel pad and bunkers, but this is what it looked like, okay, before we fixed it, because we did a lot of this work before y'all showed up so we could have some stuff to show you, but that's what it looked like, okay? And then the thing is what we've done is we put in this heavy traffic path, all right? And some of y'all might do this on your all's property too, but there's ways of doing this, and if you don't do it right, that rock's going to end up in China. First thing you want to do is you cut what I call a picture frame. You cut the soil straight down, 8 to 10 inches. You got to remove that topsoil because it has no strength, okay? You remove that topsoil, get down to a hard compacted clay layer, and then you lay geotextile fabric down the bottom of that tray that you've cut. Then you put the rock inside of it, and you want to have 6 to 8 inches or 8 to 10, that kind of thing. And then what happens is that since you cut straight down, the sidewalls of that soil profile are holding that rock in place, and they keep it from walking away. If you scrape it out with a bulldozer and you've made a ramp, that rock's walking away, that fabric's going to peel back, and you're going to have a mess. But if you do it right, it'll last you a long, long time. You can scrape it off. You can get the manure pack that's off of it. Some people put down a top layer, like 2 inches of ag lime, so that when they scrape it off, you're actually liming your soils when you apply the manure to the field. If you do it right, you'll probably have to come back probably about every 5 to 7 years and top dress that with new gravel, get it wet, compact it, and it'll cure right, okay? So gravel is one option, okay, but there's a maintenance to gravel. I'm going to show you another structure down here that uses concrete, which is like indestructible. Here's a winter feeding area that you guys might see in Kentucky in the wintertime. All right, those animals have full access to those row bales. You're looking at an average loss on the forage of 60%. It can be as high as 95%, okay? In addition, those animals are walking around in 1.5 feet of mud, okay? And so when they walk around in that mud, you're looking at 14% daily gain losses because they're walking in mud and the energy required. This structure right here, the center of it, uses concrete, which is indestructible. The ramps and approaches is basically geotextile fabric and dense grade aggregate or rock base, okay, to lead up to it. The beauty of the structure is the center section is basically designed to keep the animals from getting to that hay as far as pulling it out and wasting it, so you reduce your forage losses that way. There is no water associated with this structure. You don't want water anywhere near it. If you add water inside of that structure, the cows are going to loaf more in there, and that's more manure for you to clean up. If you have the water a couple hundred feet away, they eat, they leave, they defecate on the way, they get their water, they come back and forth, okay? And this, basically, this structure right here can serve 1, 2, 3 pastures, one structure. So you're amortizing out that money over 3 different pastures, okay? If you in certain situations, you could have a lane that could lead up to this, a 16-foot alleyway. So you could have 4 pastures that serve out of this one structure. The structure is designed for about 40 animals. If you got a herd size of 80, you bust it up into 2 groups of 40. You bring one group in, kick it out, bring in another group. If we were, which we do, have droughts every couple years in this state, and you can't bring up enough hay, then what you can do is you can do limit feeding. You can bring them in here, let them eat for 4 hours, kick them out, and bring in another group. That way they're not gorging themselves on forage that you don't have, okay? Kind of all depends on the weather, but it's got versatility. But if the water was in there and that was their water source, then you can't kick them out. Back in the day, we had a structure. It was called a winter feeding structure with a adjacent manure stack pad. Y'all remember that? Yeah. NRCS used to put it in. Can you get them anymore? No. You know why?
Because your feedlot has to be under roof.
Well, because people abused them. They pulled combines in there, commodities, basketball goal, refinished a truck, that kind of thing. That's not what it's intended for. If you're using taxpayer dollars, you have to use that structure for what it's intended for. So they didn't go to those people and say, hey, you're abusing this, you need to give us our money back that we gave you on the structure. No, they took it away from all of us. So we resurrected this structure right here a couple years ago, took it to the state and said, will you fund this under cost share? And they go, yeah, as long as you don't put a roof over it. We said, okay. So the way it's designed with that rack, you actually load it up with row bales, and depending on your herd size and how you design that structure, what it's designed to do is you load up that rack for 5 days and you're done. You just bring the animals in and out, they consume it. You're not going to lose that much in rainy weather on 5 days of row bales being outside. But yeah, if you want to put one in on your own, not go through state cost share, want to put a roof over it, go for it. But it's a significant cost, especially when you go through the NRCS, because of all the hurricanes that they had on the coastline. They would really beef up a roof over a structure like that, and it would be significantly, it would be a substantial amount of money. If you got an animal that's covered with mud, hanging tags and manure and mud, and you took it to the stockyards, they give you more money? No, they dock you, so you actually lose money. So mud costs you money, in addition to the losses of actually pulling that hoof out of there, all right? And we got stormwater diversion on the barn, where basically we're bleeding off clean water from the roof, diverting it around, and then we scrape off this concrete, put it underneath here. We got a section over here for our clean wood shavings that we're gonna rebed. But then again, you can compost dead animals in this and no one will ever know it. You won't ever know it. You won't ever attract a thing, okay? So that's multiple uses for that one structure. And again, that's available under cost share.
You know, in general, if you can give me 15 feet or 20 feet or 25, you'll get some of the benefits from it. If you're going to put permanent fencing out, you want to know kind of where your flood line is. So the best thing to do is look at the next time we have a good flood, look at that debris line and see how far that water gets out. If you're doing the temporary fencing, it's not quite as critical because that fence will lay down and you can go and pop it back up. But the biggest complaint I hear is, I don't want to fence off my streams because the flood's going to come and just wash them out. And you've got a lot of money in that and you don't want to lose that. So really pay attention to where that natural floodplain is. And that's where you ought to put your permanent fencing, but you know, if you're really going to invest the money in it. These are all practices. All the things that we have shown you so far this afternoon are practices that can be part of your ag water quality plan. Everybody got an ag water quality plan? Okay, good, a few nods. If you don't, go to your conservation district office and get one. But all of these practices not only will help your production and make your life easier, but they're also going to help water quality. And so that's kind of how Steve and I look at this. It's a twofold thing. You're getting kind of double the bang for your buck, so to speak.